Well, joining me now is Liberal Senator Jane Hume. Jane, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I want to get straight into it, and Anthony Albanese is just ignoring calls for a royal commission into the Bondi terror attack. And it seems that when it suits his political interests, like robo-debt, for example, he's all too keen to support royal commissions. Do you think it's fearful of what he thinks will uncover after years of inaction?
Jaimee, it's great to be with you tonight. You're absolutely right. It's extraordinary how many royal commissions Anthony Albanese has supported in the past. He supported royal commissions into the banking sector, into disabilities, into aged care, into robo-debt. But faced with Australia's worst ever terrorism attack, what we're looking for from our government is the strongest possible response from the state, and that is a federal royal commission. And Anthony Albanese has chosen instead to suggest that the calls for a royal commission are politically motivated, that the coalition are politicising a tragedy. Well, nothing could be further from the truth. Let's look at who has called for a royal commission so far. It's not just the Executive Council of Australian Jewry or the Rabbinical Association or even the Zionist Federation. It's also a former Federal Court Chief Justice, a former High Court Chief Justice, a former AFP Commissioner, a former Treasurer, around 7 former Federal Court judges, around 130 King's Counsel silks. And on top of that, we've also got the families of the Bondi victims that have been calling for a royal commission. The voices are increasing, the chorus is getting louder, and Anthony Albanese is resisting every step of the way because he's trying to avoid scrutiny. Now, the Richardson Review, don't get me wrong, I have great respect for Dennis Richardson. I think he is a very well-regarded, well-respected public servant. However, the review itself, the terms of reference, are entirely inadequate. They don't even mention the words anti-Semitism. That's simply not good enough when we know that unless we determine the motivation of the terrorism attacks, we simply invite an opportunity for them to be repeated. A royal commission is the only way we are going to get to the bottom of this terrible, terrible event and make sure that it never happens again.
Yes, you said it there, Senator, where anti-Semitism wasn't mentioned once yesterday when the Prime Minister was talking about the Richardson Review and what was going to be analysed and looking into law enforcement and intelligence agencies. And when I was watching him speaking at that press conference, I really couldn't help but think he just still doesn't get the seriousness of anti-Semitism and the rise of anti-Semitism within the community.
I think that's right, Jaimee. I mean, it's really important that we do have a look at our law enforcement and our intelligence and, the administrative and resource issues around that. Have there been failings there? I don't doubt that Dennis Richardson is capable of doing that. But so too is a Royal Commission. That can also be broadened. A Royal Commission can take submissions, it can compel witnesses, it can compel documents, it can have public hearings as well as private hearings. It can choose what information it releases and what information it keeps secret. So these calls of saying, oh, well, it's for security reasons we can't have a Royal Commission, that's a nonsense. There have been royal commissions in the past under the Hawke government and the Whitlam government that have both been into our intelligence communities. So there is a precedence there. And saying that we don't want to re-platform the worst anti-Semitic behaviour will give me a break. I mean, this government has allowed anti-Semitic behaviour to fester for the last 2 years, and now we're hearing calls from the Jewish community themselves that a royal commission is what they want to see. That's the response they want to see from their government. This has been an enormous failure in leadership, and Anthony Albanese is finding it harder and harder each day to resist the calls for a royal commission, and the coalition will keep holding his feet to the flames on this one.
Now, if the anger around Albo continues to get worse, now obviously you're a Liberal, but what do you think Labor will do with him? Is there any chance that you could see him being replaced?
Look, I don't think that that is the case right now, but let's face it, he has a very big caucus, and that big caucus can become unruly. Already we're beginning to see some of his own speak up and in favour of a royal commission, people like Mike Freelander, for instance. We've seen Ed Husic make calls for a Royal Commission. And we've seen former Member of Parliament, very well respected, Mike Kelly, the former member for Eden Monero, who is also a former policeman, make these calls. It becomes harder and harder for Anthony Albanese to resist when the calls come from within his own caucus. But you can understand why he's resisting. Just 2 weeks ago, the Queensland ALP passed a series of motions that condemned the state of Israel. You can see that there is some rot, some anti-Semitic rot at the core of the Labor Party. Those series of resolutions, they passed unanimously by Queensland Labor. I can understand why there's resistance, but I don't think it's a good enough reason.
No, you're absolutely right there. Let's head to your state of Victoria, and the number of full-time working police officer has fallen by nearly 200 since 2023 when Jacinta Allan took over as Premier. And I just think at the time when crime is going through the roof, you'd think that the Premier would be doing everything she could to strengthen the police force, but that just isn't the case, Senator.
There are 2,000 vacancies in the Victorian police force as well. In the meantime, over that same period of time that we've lost 200 police, crime has increased by nearly 26%. The number of home invasions has increased. The number of knife crimes has increased. The number of carjackings has increased. In the last 4 years alone, over 18 children under the age of 18 have died at the hands of knife crime. And this is all happening under Jacinta Allan's watch. At some point, Victorians are going to say enough is enough. A government's first response is to keep its citizens safe. Jacinta Allan is failing to do that here in Victoria. That's why it's so important that we take our bail laws seriously, that we establish a rule that says if you break bail, you go to jail, and no exceptions and no excuses. That's the message that Jess Wilson has been saying just today. You know, we saw the most horrendous event over the weekend where a 32-year-old woman running from an assailant who had a knife ran to the nearby police station in Reservoir, only to find that it had closed. There are 43 police stations whose hours have been reduced because we simply haven't got the police here to man them. That's not good enough. Jess Wilson is out there every single day talking about how important it is that we fund the police force, we adequately resource them, and that we give them the tools that they need through legislation to be able to do the work that we expect of them.
Well, thank you so much, Senator Jane Hume. I've seen Jess Wilson out there working very hard, and it was extremely tragic, that story you were just talking about, that woman who arrived to a police station that was one of them that have closed off the back of lack of funding. But thank you for your time this evening.